Hello folks, my name is Fernando Teixeira and I'm a senior instructor at the AWS Cloud Institute. So let's talk about how to get started using the AWS SDK. Now, first of all, why am I even covering a basic topic like this? Well, I want to cover some other practical topics on developing in AWS, but I realize that the starting point is to actually set up your environment so you can program with AWS. So here we are. So we're going to be looking at how to install the AWS CLI. That's an important starting point. But then we're going to go into getting credentials for AWS. Now there's a recommended way. I'm actually going to show you the easy way because this is a getting started type thing. Then we're going to install the AWS SDK for Python. Now I should note that I'm going to use the SDK for Python, but pretty much the other stuff, the setting up of the credentials particularly, will work for any other language. And finally, we got to test it out. We got to see it working. So I'm going to use a simple S3 example to do that. So what do you need to get started? Really, there's only one basic prerequisite. You do need an AWS account created with admin permissions. Now, I'll give you some links in the description for how to get a free tier account for AWS so you can get going with that. All right, so let's get started with installing the AWS CLI. It's not the SDK, but it is something we're gonna need. Oh, by the way, if anybody's wondering why I'm under the sea, well, people use default Office backgrounds. I figure I'll have a little more fun using one of my diving shots. All right, let's get going. To install the CLI, I'm pretty much just going to go to AWS standard documentation, and I'm actually gonna do that for pretty much everything. So I'll give you the link at the bottom of the video in the description. I'm doing this on Windows, so I'm going to expand the Windows instructions. Obviously, you can do the same thing for the other ones. I am going to run the installer over here, the standard Windows kind of easy installer. I'm going to run it. Now I'm going to go to pretty much a standard Windows installation step. Of course, I'm going to speed it up. I'm not going to make you wait through the whole thing. Click, click, click. 1, 2, 3, go. And can you believe that? As if by magic, the installation is done. Yeah, and of course, I added this so you don't have to wait. And now, I theoretically should be installed with the CLI. So the way I'm going to check that, I'm going to open a command window. I like using PowerShell, but the regular command window should work. And I'm going to type a simple AWS CLI command that's going to list my S3 buckets. Does that work? No, it did not. But that's for a good reason. That's okay. That's because, well, AWS cannot find credentials. See, that's going to be the second step now. But the CLI worked because I didn't get any error that says, I don't know what the heck AWS is. So now we're going to start looking at the credentials. When it comes to getting credentials, there's actually a number of different ways you can do that. I'm actually going to show you the easiest way, which honestly is not the officially recommended way, but if you're just a developer working by yourself, learning AWS, it's perfectly fine, and that's how I started. So let's get moving here. So I'm over here at the AWS console. Remember, I said I did need an account with administrator permission. I'm going to go to IAM over here. Then I'm going to select users. And I'm going to select one of my users. I could do it for myself. I'm going to use the account I have for my dog Tucker over here so I don't mess with my own credentials. I'm going to go to the security credentials tab. Then I'm going to scroll down to access keys and I'm going to click create access keys. I'm going to select the CLI option. Let's scroll down. I have to confirm that yes, I'm going to proceed with creating access keys. Security is always important, a lot of confirmations. I'm going to do next. I'm going to create my access keys. Now when I do this, it's going to give me this information over here. Notice that it hit everything. It's actually the last time I'm going to be able to see something on the console if I want to. What I really want to do is to download this. I want to download the CSV file. And that's now available in my environment. I'm going to open that up. Now, normally I would never be sharing with somebody my credentials file, but honestly, as soon as this session is over, I am going to be deleting this. But please be aware that this is, very secret, right? I'm only showing over here because by the time this video is over, those credentials will no longer be valid, but I want you to see kind of what they look like. So I'm going to keep this around, but my next step is going to be to actually configure those keys. So I'm going to go back to where, remember I was here before, and the last thing I saw is this didn't work. I tried to do a CLI command and it didn't work. Well, so I need to do now a AWS configure. Now this is going to ask me for my access key. Well, guess what? I have the access key right here. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to paste it over here. And it's going to ask me for the secret access key. Yep, that's this other one over here. I grab this thing here. I'm going to paste it over here. It's going to ask me for my default region. I tend to like to work out of US East 2. Output format, I'm going to put JSON. I tend to like to work with JSON as my output format. And that's it. I now have valid credentials. How can I test that? Well, I can rerun that same command that I did before up there. And guess what's going to happen now? Yes, now I'm seeing my S3 buckets. Now, the way AWS saves this is that it actually puts everything in a directory under your home directory called .aws. So if I go over here and I list what I have those two files. If I print what I have in my credentials files, lo and behold, there's my access key and my secret access key. And the config file just has some, right now the only configuration I have is my region and my output, but there's other configurations you can put that later. And this is what's going to be used by most of the IDEs and other things that I use in my account. Well, now that we have credentials, we're ready to install and try the AWS SDK. In this video, I'll be using Python. Installing the Python SDK is as simple as going to the Boto 3 documentation. Boto 3 is the AWS SDK for Python. And I can see it's just a simple pip install. So if I go over here to my PowerShell, pip install Boto 3, it's going to go ahead and install. Now, please note, I did not put Python as a requirement for this particular session because, well, as I mentioned earlier, all of the stuff that we had above, that would also work. All of the credential stuff, they would work for any language. It's just that I'm using Python as my example. Okay, so I have Boto 3 installed, so I should be able to go to something like VS Code right now. And on VS Code, I have a very, very, very simple Python project. I have something that just basically going to do what I consider the key steps in doing anything with the SDK. It installs the SDK step 1, creates a client step 2, and then uses that client over here to make a call. In this case, I'm going to list all of the objects in my Tucker photo album bucket. That's a bucket where I have pictures of my dog, and then just going to print out the information. So if I go over here and I run this, there you go, I got the list. Now, how did VS Code in this case get the credentials? Well, it looked up by default on that same credentials file that I showed you under .aws. There are other ways of setting those things, but again, this was the plain and simple, and that should work with the majority of IDEs. And that's a wrap, folks. Time allowing, I plan to do a few more practical demos for things like Lambda, DynamoDB, API Gateway, and even some AI with Bedrock. So as the viral influencers say, click like and subscribe. See ya.